Oh, hey, good morning, good afternoon, everybody, depending on which part of this beleaguered country that you're in. You're watching Rebel Roundup, Rebel News' daily news and opinion show. I'm your regular host, Sheila Gunn, and I'm joined today by my Thursday co-host, my friend, my colleague, someone I rely on maybe a little bit too much here at Rebel News, Tamara Ugolini from Coburg. How's it going?
Oh, it's going, Sheila. Happy to be back with you in the chair. It's been a while. No, it was just Monday. I'm getting my days and my weeks are all like melding together because it's summer and things have just been so chaotic. So
Yeah.
it feels like it's been forever, but in fact, it actually hasn't. But I'm doing good. Thanks. How are you?
Oh, good. The Independence Roadshow of Alberta's Choice at alberta-choice.com is it's consuming me. It's consuming me. I'm up early, I'm in meetings all the time, and I'm giving out signs in the evening after my regular job, but this is a once in a lifetime opportunity, and I'll sleep on October 20th. So so that's fine. I'll tell everybody what we're doing around here because the company sort of ends up bottlenecked when Tamara and I are both busy doing the exact same thing. So we're going to do our best to end exactly at, well, for me, 12 noon, for Tamara, 2 p.m. We make that promise a lot. We never achieve it, but we're going to do our best. If you're watching us on Rumble, excellent free speech platform. If you want to support the work that we do here at Rebel News, because we'll never take a penny from the government to do it, you can leave a Rumble rant. That's their paid chat. If it's over the $5 US cutoff, we will read it on air. If it's under that, we'll do our very best, time permitting. If you are watching us on YouTube, their paid chat is called a super chat. Same rules apply, but they also have another mechanism by which to support us if you miss the live version of the show, and that's a paid comment called a super thanks. And we just appreciate you choosing us because we know there's less money in your pocket than ever before. Thank you, Carney Liberals. And there are a lot of other, well, there's not a lot of other independent journalists out there, but there are a few, and we appreciate you choosing us. So let's get into the news of the day. Mark Carney admitting defeat. Um, I saw this yesterday. It was all over the American news, and rightfully so. Mark Carney on NATO defense spending, saying that President Trump isn't just winning the argument on everybody else starting to pull their own weight, but he's won the argument.
Part of the point I made to President Trump when we spoke a few days ago is that it's not just he's winning the argument, he's won the argument. Countries recognize that they need to take more responsibility, see the direct threats. Part of the point I made.
Yeah. But here's the thing about I'm going to flip this to you, Olivia. It's from Blacklocks. When the Liberals are saying that they're making these announcements about military spending and, oh, we're going to meet our NATO targets, it's not exactly what you think it is. It's not like they're going to staff up the military and do adequate, competent recruitment, do more things to retain our current active Canadian Forces membership, who are increasingly demoralized by the woke nonsense and the decrepit vehicles and tools at their disposal. They're not really doing that. Our troops in Latvia, their families are still sending them MREs and equipment because they're not appropriately equipped to be there. But we know that some of the spending on military procurement has to go through a green lens. So they're spending money to green the military and put tampons in the men's room. They're not actually, equipping our troops with the things they need, let alone the best of the things that they need. And this was from, I think, Blacklock's today. Green vehicle study. So the Department of National Defense yesterday commissioned a $1.2 million study on the feasibility of zero-emission light armored vehicles. Managers said they remained committed to meeting climate targets, despite research indicating green military technology is not just failing, but non-existent, too costly, or impractical. So this is what they're doing when they say, oh, we're increasing military spending to meet our NATO targets. Not really. They're spending it to make it green woke instead of just regular old rainbow woke.
And this isn't actually even buying up any sort of vehicle,
Not
green or
yet.
otherwise. This is literally just $1.2 million to study its
Hmm.
potential. This is absolute nonsense. A study that costs $1.2 million. I mean, I don't know if that could buy you a tank, but the
Hell
fact
of
that
a
we're
lot of MREs. That'll buy a hell of a lot of MREs for our troops in Latvia.
yeah, and it would help fund a lot of the salaries for more troops because that is also severely lacking in the military. And the fact that we're just out here making it rain $1.2 million for a study on green
Yeah.
vehicle feasibility is insane. I mean, the fact that we're going to rely on, solar or wind power in times
Right.
of war.
Yeah.
No, you need
No.
reliable, consistent fuel, oil and gas in a time of crisis like that, where expediency is basically your number one. If you're not fast and on the ball, you're getting blown up, like quite literally. Um, this is the sad state of affairs in the Canadian government on full display in this nonsense squandering of tax
Yeah.
dollars to the tune of millions for a stupid green vehicle study
Yeah.
um,
I think
under
the
the guise of meeting a
target,
NATO target.
yeah, I think the target actually for the greenification, the green wokening of the Canadian military, I think is $4 billion. $4 billion to green the military. In the meantime, our troops are going without. And because we can't meet our recruitment goals, we're just allowing foreign mercenaries to join the military. The um, temporary foreign residents of our country are being allowed to serve in the military, which will, I'm sure, disgruntle at the very least our American friends and allies.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what this nonsense is to decarbonize operations.
Yeah.
It is expected the national safety and security fleet departments will use more environmentally friendly technologies. Like,
Yeah.
give me a break. You don't want a solar powered tank in the middle of active combat.
Yeah.
What if it's a cloudy day? Sorry, Canada's out for this one, guys. Our solar panels just not charging our vehicles.
Well, and so you're in a war zone. Some of these places don't have electricity. How are you supposed to charge your EV tank? Right? Like, how does that work? But this is Canada's woke military on display,
Well,
and it just fails the troops.
lucky for us, there isn't currently. So they say that there's not currently any of these green powered vehicles, but that a study or a note, I guess, will be coming due in 18 months to
Okay,
look
good.
at no no zero emissions platforms in armored vehicles exist, but they're going to be publishing a report on it in 18 months. So yay for us and being fast and on the ball. Like a year
Um,
and a half from now. Thanks, guys.
yeah, we're a joke. That's what it is. Like they are, if you just put money to green the military into whatever search engine you have, greening the military, defense spending must align with the green targets, greening defense. And this is like not just crazy lefties saying this, it's like from policy options and Canada.ca, including $144.6 million in green upgrades to residential military housing. Oh my God. I'm so embarrassed. Okay.
Meanwhile, a bunch of veterans are actually homeless. Let's like
Actually
focus on
homeless.
just getting them housing rather than greening the housing that already exists.
Yes. And on the flip side, while our military goes under equipped and I guess tamponed, over tamponed and under equipped, we've got Canada giving roughly $1 billion, $900 million in aid for Ukraine, including military equipment for them and air defense and energy support for them, not our
We get
guys, for them.
studies. Yeah,
We
we
get
have a report
studies,
coming in 18 months.
studies and tampons in the men's room and solar panels on the barracks, but nothing but the best for Ukraine. Let's watch.
We will be announcing, Canada will be announcing about $900 million of support for medium-term military support. When I say medium-term, in the coming months, both in terms of vehicles, both in terms of munitions and other support, in addition to this vital support for air defense, and then very much in terms of the needs on energy for the winter, but then beyond for the reconstruction and a strong Ukrainian economy that's fully integrated in Europe, fully integrated in the global economy. We will be announcing
a strong Ukrainian economy. What about a strong Canadian economy and a strong Canadian military? I mean, he's saying, oh, well, our $900 million aid package, which, by the way, no Canadian ever voted for. And the Carney Liberals only have a majority government to be able to ram certain things like this through sneaky backroom door deals. So they get that aid within a few months. He almost says it like, don't fret, it's coming soon. You don't have to wait very long. It's just a few short months. And then you contrast that with what Blacklock's just reported, that we'll be getting a green armored vehicle feasibility study in 18 months. The urgency and the priority here shouldn't be on Ukraine and their military and their economy. That should be here at home for Canada. What is this guy even on?
Well, and there's a lot going on in this clip because, and I've got a clip, or I've got a post from our friends at the CCFR that I'll talk about in a second, but that's at a NATO summit in Turkey. Why is NATO allowing Turkey to be part of NATO? Turkish banks are soft on enabling Iran's terrorism. So a lot of the money that is being used to fund terrorism with Iranian dollars is going through Turkish banks. And that doesn't even get me started on the slaughter of the Kurds and Christians at the hands of Turkey. Why is Turkey even in NATO? It's a base for the Muslim Brotherhood, a safe base for the Muslim Brotherhood. Why is NATO allowing Turkey to be a part of it? And yeah, why are we giving money to Ukraine when our military is so ill-equipped? And this is just like $1 billion in spending, and we're just like, I guess that's what a majority government does. I suppose so. But something embarrassing happened to Mark Carney after he announced this military funding for Ukraine. So Zelensky then turns around and gifts a firearm to the leaders there. It was a handgun. And so every NATO leader was given a handgun. And this is funny. So Carney got this gift. I think it was from Zelensky anyway. Either way, it doesn't even matter who it's from. Oh, it was the Turkish leader. Okay, great. So we were getting it from a Turkish leader. And he gets a handgun from a Turkish leader. And then he immediately has to turn it over to the RCMP for destruction. He can't possess it because Canadians cannot receive handguns. Our handguns are frozen with us. And Carney, as far as I know, doesn't have an RPAL. And it wouldn't matter anyway, because you can't get a new handgun in this country. So, yeah, so it was President Erdogan, actually, gifted one to all the leaders attending the NATO summit in Ankara. Global Affairs Canada said the gun is being transferred to the RCMP to be decommissioned, and the ammunition accompanying the gift remain in Turkey. How embarrassing that they can't even allow Carney to take this gift home. But that's the state of affairs for firearms ownership in this country.
Well, and this was also a highly personalized, engraved pistol.
Yeah.
So this was like specifically to Mark Carney, engraved and personalized for him.
Mm-hmm.
And now he, because of their own failed liberal gun control policies, can't even take that home with him.
Yeah. He can't even like make it so that it's non-fireable. He can't even do that and then just bring it home as a souvenir or anything like that. It's because it's a firearm being transferred to him, a handgun being transferred to him. Not only does he not have an RPAL, but you can't transfer handguns anymore. It's got to be immediately turned over to the RCMP and destroyed. How embarrassing.
And the ammunition couldn't even, I mean, he just had to leave it in Turkey.
Mhm.
So
How
a senior
embarrassing.
government source speaking on background said the gun could eventually be donated.
To whom?
Where to Ukraine?
I guess you can't go to somebody else. Like, this also tells me that senior officials don't know what the gun laws are, which actually that's always been the case. I mean, we saw Gary and Sangri not know what an RPAL was, or not know that we have red flag laws or anything like that. And he's in charge of the gun file. So of course a senior bureaucrat with the PMO wouldn't know that that firearm cannot be donated. It can't go anywhere. It has to go to the RCMP for destruction, not just decommissioning, destruction.
Well, they do say here that they may, so following guidance from Canadian authorities, the government is looking to find an appropriate placement for this gift, including at a museum. So we may be able to box it up with a pretty bow and put it into a museum.
I don't know how they're able to do that, because my father's firearms, which I am in possession of post his passing, regardless of how collectible they are or how historic they are, they will have to be destroyed. They can't go to a museum. So how can Mark Carney's gift go to a museum when my family history cannot be preserved in that way?
Right. Rules for thee, but not for me, says Mark
Guess so.
Carney with his little growing hunchback there.
Oh God, he's
I see
so
the
frail.
the one photo of him from National News Watch. It's just on full display there.
Yeah, he's so bony. He's just so bony. We've got this video from Minister of Defense David McGuinty claiming Canadians are living in fear of Iran and Russia. Now, I think Canadians might be living in fear of Iran, but I don't know if the Red Scare is still alive. And they're prepared to live in poverty to meet their aggressive 5% GDP NATO spending target. Let's watch this.
1.2% to 2%, and Canada aims to get to 5%.
Yes.
Can you just say, do you think that the Canadian public is aware of the degree of sacrifice that it's going to have to make to achieve that kind of expenditure on defense? And
Great
where is that
question.
money going to come from? What has to be given up to get to 5%?
I think the Canadian people realize that there's been a lot of change. I think they realize that our geography no longer protects us as a matter of course. I think they saw through this recent war in Iran, that Iran, for example, deployed a missile which traveled over 5,000 kilometers, having announced to the world for 2.5 decades that they had no such capacity, that they only had a missile that could travel 2,000, maybe 2,500 kilometers. The Canadian people know that the threat landscape has changed. The Canadian people understand that there are foreign interference activities going on. They understand that we need to make these investments.
Do they understand where the money is going to come from? Do you yourselves understand?
Right.
Yes, we do. We're growing our economy.
Do
We're
you
making
even
major
know?
investments in the defense sector to generate more wealth, create more jobs, and provide the resources we need to accomplish this goal. And we're well on our way. I mean, we have done things in the last 12 months which I think the Canadian people are very supportive of. I think they saw the announcement yesterday for the submarine choice, and I think they said that's a very positive thing for Canada's security and sovereignty. And they're with us. I travel this country from coast to coast to coast, and I hear from them, please keep moving forward. Please keep us safe. Please keep us secure and sovereign.
I'm not against us meeting our NATO targets. Obviously, we haven't been pulling our own weight. But that is a good question. Where is the money going to come from? And McGuinty says, oh, we're growing our economy. Where? We are the only country in the G7 in a recession. Our economy isn't growing. It's by definition receding. That's where the root of recession comes from. So I don't know what he's talking about. And then he says our geography doesn't protect us anymore. I think that's a sideways swipe at the Americans, because Our geography has always protected us in that we are in close proximity to the world's largest, most effective military. Actually, the most largest and effective military in human history is right beside us. And we've always been friends and allies. And now we're not, because the liberals have destroyed that relationship. But yes, where are we going to get 5% from if our economy is in a recession?
Well, I love that he just deflects right off the onset, which I mean is just standard political response these days, especially from the liberals. But the reporter like pushes even further. He's like, "Do you even know? Like, if you can't answer my question, where's the money going to come from? Then do you even know where it's going to come from? Because the likelihood is probably not." But I love it that in there, Blair says about foreign interference. I don't know about anybody else, but as a Canadian, I would love to know who the 11 compromised parliamentarians are that have engaged in and been subjected to foreign interference. Because as a Canadian, I still have no idea who those people are, you know, whether they're backbench. I mean, it doesn't even matter whether they're ministers or not. I would like to know who's been compromised by foreign interference and are they still members of parliament? Because I would wager a bet that they are.
Yep.
And there's nothing in the way of that to keep our country safe and sovereign. So they claimed to be so concerned about who are the 11 compromised parliamentarians. You want to talk about foreign interference? That is absurd to just gloss over that fact and be like, I mean, for all we know, McGuinty could be
one
of them.
Yeah, could be one of them. Although I have a pretty good idea of who the 11 are. Also, you know, he notes that Canadians are living in fear of Iran. I believe some Canadians are, but we could lessen their fear if we deported the people who are regime linked, who are already inside of Canada. We're pretty sure we know who a bunch of them are. Just get them out. Like, we could start there. There are things that they could do without actually spending a penny, besides gas money to go and round these people up and send them back to wherever they came from. We could try that.
We just talked about earlier this week on a live stream, a man who was sentenced to be deported, like however many years prior, several years ago, remains still in the country and is repeatedly offending and engaging in more criminal acts, and yet remains unabated in this country.
Yeah, we've got our next story is about exactly that. It's from the National Post, and it asks, why are hardened criminals allowed to remain? And the story details a non-citizen convicted of manslaughter, sentenced for drug and gun charges. Let's scroll down on this if we could. This is from Mason Cossack from the National Post. A non-citizen with a manslaughter conviction was under court-ordered supervision when police found a loaded handgun. How much do you want to bet he doesn't have an art pal? Cocaine and fentanyl in his car. First of all, why are you in the country still with a manslaughter conviction? You should have been convicted, served your sentence here, and then effectively deported. Like, out of your jail cell, into the CBSA vehicle, to the airport, arrivederci. I don't care where you're going, but you're not staying here. This is David Jejua, who was sentenced to 6.5 years last month in the Ontario Superior Court of Justice. And he will likely not be deported after he serves this as well. The offense dates back to January 2024. At the time, he had already lost his immigration status. So he's under court-ordered supervision, so they know where he is. You can just go get him. Jejua was the front seat passenger in a car stopped in Addington Highlands in Eastern Ontario, north of Napanee. Under his seat, police found a loaded 9mm handgun, 80 grams of cocaine, and about 12 grams of fentanyl, enough for roughly 120 doses or to kill an entire herd of cattle. He was under a weapons prohibition at the time. You think? He pleaded guilty to 4 counts: occupying a vehicle, knowing a firearm was present, possession of cocaine for the purposes of trafficking, possession of fentanyl for the purposes of trafficking, and possession of a firearm in breach of a prohibition order. It's not his first serious conviction. Jejua had already been convicted of manslaughter, for which he served a federal sentence. He also has a prior conviction for robbery and one for drug trafficking. Why was he even out? He was under community supervision when he was caught.
He's at one of the community sweat lodges.
Right. Right.
Why a non-citizen with a serious criminal record was still in the country at the time of the most recent offenses is the
Yeah.
question no one could answer.
Well, the judge goes on to make excuses for him. Can you bring that up, Olivia, again? Dejua came to Canada from Sierra Leone when he was 13 years old. The decision did not state if he had lost his immigration status before or after he was convicted of manslaughter. It doesn't matter. We had him at manslaughter. We could have dealt with it then. But the judge said he took into consideration when deciding his sentence. See, this is the judge making excuse for him. He's a poor little undocumented person, so of course he has to turn to crime. No, he could turn to the airport and go home. Your inability to obtain lawful employment due to your immigration status created financial pressures that contributed to your involvement in drug trafficking. Justice Graham Mew wrote in his decision that pressure should not overshadow the seriousness of the offense, the judge said, and gave denunciation and deterrence the greatest weight. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
That's DEI in action right there.
Yeah. You guys, he couldn't work because he's in the country illegally, so he just turned to trafficking and being a gangster.
It's almost like when you come to the country illegally, it's just a snowball effect of illegal acts thereafter. Why are we tolerating this?
Right. And it's like there's a story every single day about this. Just on the court beat file before we hit an ad break. Mandatory minimum sentence for sex abuse material is unconstitutional. Do you know what the mandatory minimum sentence is?
Gosh.
It's so pitiful. It's a year, and they ruled that unconstitutional. Quebec's highest court has ruled a mandatory 1-year sentence for distribution of child sexual abuse material is unconstitutional. Probably going to get hit on YouTube for this. Just be wary, Olivia.
Yeah.
In a decision Monday, a Court of Appeal panel ruled the case of a man who pleaded guilty in 2018 to 1 count each of possessing, accessing, and distributing the material. The panel found the original sentence of 12 months imprisonment would constitute cruel and unusual punishment.
Please.
Given the defendant's intellectual disability and mental health conditions. We had a story about this yesterday. It noted that many experts, as well as the Supreme Court of Canada, have established that imprisonment has particularly negative effects on people with intellectual deficiencies, which the defendant experienced during the time he was incarcerated. The court reduced the defendant's sentence to 6 months served in the community. He didn't get a day in jail, as well as probation and a long list of conditions, including in addition to the time already served in detention. So he got a lesser sentence than Tamara Leach, who got 1 year served in the community.
And if you look at the array of materials that the defendant
600 images. Every single one of these images, a child had to be abused for.
Yeah, you want to talk about cruel and unusual punishment.
Right. And these images are out there forever, by the way. You cannot escape this if you've been the victim of this. And these guys are driving the demand for the upstream abuse. 150 videos depicting images of children between the ages of 3 and 13.
Ugh, that's absolutely disgusting.
And he also sent 73 files to another person via Skype.
And it says here that because the defendant has a mental age of between 8 and 11 years old, that to me just screams reoffend, right? If there's not the mental capacity there to recognize that what you're engaged in is wrong and in fact criminal, then what is preventing another offense, right? That's the whole issue with being so loosey-goosey with these laws, is that there's no repercussions, there's no consequences for your actions. And in fact, when you have someone who's, I would wager a bet, is likely to reoffend and go on because they don't have the mental capacity to recognize what's actually gone on here and how they're wrong, that's just asking for more crime and criminality. And that's the whole problem with Canada's justice system. is we're not tough on it.
Let's also remember that this is just what he got caught for. These offenders, they offend and they offend and they offend before they even get caught once. He was initially given, we say 12 months, but that's 12 months cumulatively. He was given 6 months for possession and another 6 months for accessing to be served concurrently, not consecutively. So actually, he only originally got 6 months in jail with the concurrent sentencing. The Court of Appeal reduced those sentences to 3 months each served in the community. So that actually, he only got 3 months house arrest, because those, I'm assuming, because they don't make the clarification, would also be, as with the original sentence, served concurrently in the community. So he got 1/4 of the sentence that Tamara Leach got.
Just a slap in the face to actually law-abiding citizens and ones like Tamara Leach who were just simply protesting the government's actions and suppression of its citizens for the better part of, at that point, 2 years. But I would say has just kind of continued on to this day. But this, I mean, are judges at this point just bringing on vigilantism? I mean,
Yes.
when there's these massive gaps in justice, when there is no justice, that's just asking for the public to start taking matters into their own hands. And I think that is more dangerous than locking up and being tough on criminals.
Right. And our mandatory minimum sentences in this country are pathetic to begin with. 1 year for this, really? And Parliament just passed a law that ensures that mandatory minimums are to stay in place, the pathetic ones included. So this is a judge just writing law. This is a time for the notwithstanding clause to be brought into place to make sure that this stuff doesn't happen, because now it's being deemed unconstitutional. Well, it should be deemed operational, notwithstanding the Constitution, to protect Canada's children. A country that doesn't protect its children is a country on the verge of falling. You don't value your young people, and you see this attitude in the voting habits of certain Canadians, right? For time immemorial, that's how society advanced. You protected the young because the young is the future of your civilization. And now we vote for a Canada that hamstrings them from ever achieving what their parents and grandparents have, and then we don't protect them from predators. A bear knows to protect its young. Why don't the citizens of Canada and judges? I have no idea.
Well, it seems like the citizens of Canada will probably be starting to, and it's just the judges who are the real failures in this picture.
Yes, I think we should read this chat, hit an ad break, and then we'll do our ad read from our friends at Rumble Wallet. So we've got an ad read from a chat from AMT60, $5. This is for you, Tamara. Tamara, I liked your video with the census worker. Have you filled it out yet? I haven't, but so far I haven't had anyone at the door yet. I wouldn't answer it anyway. If they catch me, I will record it.
Yeah, the key is to definitely record it, and let me know, submit it to me if and when that happens. But nope, I have not filled out my census. I told her in the video that you saw, obviously, that I would prefer not to, and I'll look at my options. And right now I'm still weighing those options. And sometimes you don't have to say no to know that it's no, right? Sometimes a non-answer is an answer. So that's what I'm sticking to for now with the census.
Yeah, in the census, most of it is just what flavor of gender wang you are. This really seemed to be the focus of the census as as our economy devolves into just a firestorm. That seems to be what the government is really focused on, is how many gender wang weirdos are in the country and how do we inflate those numbers?
Yeah, and do you have air conditioners because they need to be solar paneled?
Right.
Or solar panel powered.
Yep.
One thing actually on the census, which I found really interesting, after my report went out, somebody flagged to me and sent me a video that Randy Hillier had done on the census several months ago. And he basically says, like, slavery was abolished in this country, decades, nearly even a century ago, or maybe even longer than that. Actually, I'm not sure the year to be exact, but anyway. And so expecting me to take hours out of my day to fill out this government census, which then they resell for millions of dollars to the private sector and businesses, He's like, that constitutes essentially slavery. And so I'm not doing this work for free, and I'm not a slave to your data solicitation efforts. And so when you're willing to pay me for my time and for my data, then we can have a chat about how much you want to pay me and whether or not I'll do the census. So I think that's a good angle to take as well.
Yeah. We never had slavery in this country. Once we had an official government, we never had slavery. We were a safe place from slavery. And so I would like it to remain that way. And I don't want to be a slave to the state. Okay, let's hit an ad break and we'll be back on the other side.
Canada's been told to just quit smoking for decades, same message over and over, and yet millions of Canadians still smoke. So let's ask a follow-up question. For those who don't quit, what about change? In 2026, Canada has options that didn't exist years ago. Smoke-free alternatives for adults who would otherwise continue smoking. That doesn't mean risk-free, it means informed choice. If you don't smoke, don't start. If you smoke, quit. But for those who don't quit, change could still be part of the conversation. That's why Canadians should check out unsmoke.ca, an information resource focused on smoke-free alternatives and honest facts, not judgment. Put the lighter down, Canada. Learn what your options are.
In Canada, firearms owners like me understand the importance of safe, effective self-defense options. That's why we're proud to have Byrna as a sponsor. Byrna's less lethal launchers are designed to help protect you and your family without taking a life. Byrna offers peace of mind, accessibility, and a practical layer of personal security for Canadians who value safety. Learn more at byrna.ca/rebel. That's BYRNA.ca/rebel.
For generations, many Canadians have preserved more than just firearms. They've preserved history, tradition, competition, memories. But under Trudeau, and now Carney, heirlooms, estates, collectibles, and competition firearms now have to be surrendered and destroyed. While violent gun criminals get pass after pass, openly ignoring any legislation, lawful gun owners are trapped in an increasingly unfair legal system. But we can help. Canada's National Firearms Association's Save Firearms program offers the legal pathway to preserve what matters, while we work towards a political solution. Don't let yours be next. Save history. Save heritage. Save firearms. Visit nfa.ca today to learn more.
All right, we'll go to this quick Rumble Wallet ad, and then we will get into more smoke and mirrors from our government. Surprise, surprise. This comes from Rumble Wallet. We hear a lot about crypto, but here's the part most people miss. Crypto was created so you could actually own and control your money. After the 2008 financial crisis, Bitcoin was designed as an alternative to banks. So instead of a bank holding your money, delaying transfers, or limiting access, you're in control. And if you've ever had to wait for a transfer to clear, you have felt that problem. Now you fast forward to today, everyone's heard of crypto, but getting started still feels complicated. And that's why I use Rumble Wallet. It takes all of that complexity and it makes it simple. Choose what you want: Bitcoin, dollar-backed stable coins, or even digital gold backed by real gold. No complicated setup. It connects with MoonPay, so you can use your credit card, debit card, or bank and be up and running in minutes. Once you're set up, you can even support your favorite Rumble creators like us directly. So do this now. Scan the QR code or click the link in the description and download Rumble Wallet. From there, you can set up your wallet. You tap buy and then you're in the game. In just a few minutes, you can go from hearing about crypto to actually owning some.
Great. One thing I want to talk about, we didn't really get a chance to talk about it with Marty up north yesterday, Marty Belanger. Big announcement in Alberta yesterday, but if you're in the know, you knew this was coming. Why? Because Juno broke the news 3 days ago. Meta announced a $13 billion AI center in the industrial heartland, just up the road from me, actually. And so for all the federalist crazy people who are like, the referendum is scaring off investment, I'm looking at you, Calgary Chamber of Commerce, losers. It's not. This is the single largest investment in an AI data center for Meta, one of the world's largest companies, outside of the United States. I think it is the largest one outside of the United States, and it's here because of the Alberta advantage. And access, by the way, to tradespeople. We are a very trades-heavy economy, and it sounds like if Blaise Bomer, who used to work for the government in Alberta here, has pointed out, if you need an electrician, get your electrical work done now, because their rates are about to double. Their salaries are about to double. Every single leftover electrician who isn't flat out on some other project in this province is going to be just gobbled up by this AI data center to power Meta in Canada. And it's such a good thing for the trades here. Setting aside people's concerns about AI data centers, whatever, let's not even talk about that right now. But the idea that putting a question to Albertans about our future would scare off investment, sorry guys, it absolutely isn't. Besides, Dow expanding in Fort Saskatchewan and other private sector investments, this is a huge one. And Alberta is poised to benefit enormously. I think it's like $250 million in just taxes alone every single year. And that doesn't even count the economic activity created by people whose salaries are instantly doubling to build this thing just out of demand alone. That's all.
Yeah. And I will have some opinions probably on a mega data center. But I have to look further into them.
Yeah.
Into that
I'll let you know if
first.
it destroys my life. It'll be just be right up the road from me. So, but as far as the economic activity and
Yes.
the benefit to our tradesmen and women, I couldn't be more pleased for them to see their salaries go from, $175,000 a year to somewhere, around 325 for doing the same job. Like, it's just incredible. And I love, just for spite, seeing the Federalists proven wrong.
Exactly. Yeah. And the media lapdogs too, right? Who just parrot that narrative, unquestionably. And it's like, well, actually Meta's a massive conglomerate. And if they're investing, then
$13 billion. I think it's the single largest private sector investment in anything in Canadian history.
Okay. We just need that for the pipeline.
Right. So I guess the moral of the story is, if you don't have a big pile of legislative restrictions on doing things, things will get done. The private sector will build it if you just get out of its way.
There you have it. All right. And meanwhile, the government, i.e. Prime Minister Mark Carney, said that they were cutting the federal bureaucracy, right? They were slashing wages, cutting the bloat, getting rid of the waste. And then here we have found out that actually it was mostly just term, casual, and student positions.
Student positions, like part-time summer jobs.
Yeah, that account for 50% of the federal jobs cut data. So nearly half of the 12,600 jobs cut from the federal service over the last year were term, casual, and student positions.
I hope AI claims the rest. This is why I'm scared of AI, but on some level I'm pro AI, because if it gets rid of federal workers, okay.
Well, and this also came out, I forget where it came from exactly, but we spoke about it on a live stream either earlier this week or last week, where the federal government bloated at like 3 times the rate of population in this country in the last 7 to 10 years. So that is absolutely insane and needs to obviously be cut back and in line with population growth. I mean, our population has grown massively in the last 3 years. And even still, the federal bureaucracy has outpaced that explosion, mainly due to unmitigated opening the floodgates immigration. But regardless, the fact that the government bloated beyond that staggering population growth is massive. And for what? Canadians repeatedly report that services are no better in this country. So you get worse services, but a more bloated bureaucracy, and that just that should not sit right with the majority of Canadians who obviously aren't employed by the federal government. And that needs to be obviously put back in line with historical averages and norms.
Like they employ a mid-sized Canadian city worth of federal workers. But this is a way, and we saw this happen in Alberta, when unemployment is spiking, the federal government goes on a hiring spree, and it's to hide or mitigate the unemployment statistics. In Alberta in 2015, it was just massive amounts of layoffs in the oil and gas sector. Like it was 800 on one day and another 600 on another day and 400 on another day. Like it was just a very tragic time in Alberta. And what the provincial NDP government did was they went on a hiring spree and hired like 50,000 government workers in Alberta for what, right? But they were trying to hide those unemployment numbers. And you can see the federal government is doing the same completely.
Yeah, and they can't even get anything right, it seems.
Try getting
regardless.
a passport.
Try getting a passport.
Talk to the CRA.
Yeah, try reaching somebody, an actual person on the line of CRA without spending hours on hold or having to go through multi-layered bureaucracy. Try getting your vaccine injury documented. Public Health Agency of Canada was supposed to take that program over, and it's been crickets mostly ever since, other than they're refining their process. Yeah, okay, you guys have had 5 years. What's taking so long? But also, we have the report coming from coming from the Privacy Commissioner, the Information Commissioner, my mistake.
Yeah.
Her report is showing that the Prime Minister's office is skirting information,
the PCO.
access to information legislation.
So the PCO are the bureaucrats that support cabinet, and they are not following information laws. I know that firsthand. They frequently redact documents that should not be redacted. They take sometimes half a decade to get documents back to me, where I'm like, I don't even remember why I asked for this stuff. The people involved have retired, they've lost their seats, whatever. And just then you're getting documents, and there's no reason for it. Especially with a ballooning bureaucracy. If there are more of you jerks than ever before, why does it seem like you're getting less effective? And again, I reiterate, I'm frightened of AI. I don't want to be part of the reason it takes over the world. But these are just government documents. Most of them are digital. You could have an AI bot troll through emails and just give this stuff to me. But instead it takes years and years and years in violation of Canadian law.
Well, and they sealed, remember just earlier this year, Health Canada sealed vaccine injury records for 15 years.
Yeah.
And I would argue, because there's just a magnitude of, like, a massive amount of records that they could never compile and get through to them all. But meanwhile, we have a bloated bureaucracy that will, if we're hiring all these people and your agency has expanded so much in the last few years, why can't you dedicate a couple staff to get through those files and get them out and turned around in your legislated requirement of 30 days, to you maybe take a 60 or a 90-day extension, but 15 years?
Yeah.
That is insane.
Yeah. We remember, and Trudeau used proroguing Parliament over and over again to stop the introduction of documents. He did it, with the We charity, and I think he did it with ArriveCan, SNC, over and over again. So there are all kinds of ways that they abuse the system to make sure that people don't have access to the things that you're supposed to have access to. Democracy is supposed to be done in public so that everybody has confidence in what's happening, so that you don't think that things are corrupt and broken and behind closed doors. It's why we have a gallery in the courtrooms. Justice is supposed to be done in full view of the public too. But we are governed by people who make decisions behind closed doors, and then when they when the last thing that people can do is use access to information to find out what was being said and done behind closed doors is obstructed, we really don't have an open and fair democracy at all, because it eliminates our scrutiny of it.
Exactly. And none of that could be more true when you look at and try to scrutinize the vaccine injury support program that was initially supposed to be ready to go and rolled out alongside the novel, at that time still very novel, modified RNA injections. Took months to actually implement. And then I filed access to information to get the documents of the budgetary breakdown. And Health Canada and the Public Health Agency of Canada actually redacted all of those numbers, so I couldn't see what was going where. And I'm like, the whole point of this access to information request was to find those numbers. So I had to appeal that decision and wait several more months. And finally, I was able to break the story that 60% of the initial budgetary allocation went right into the consultants' pockets for this program, not to the victims that were promised fair and timely support and compensation. No, it went to the consultants, who then took the first 2 years of the program to even get it up and running. So meanwhile, people were being injured left, right, and center, and they're just being hung out to dry and being told safe and effective, fair and timely access. And meanwhile, they have debilitating injuries that prevents them from any sort of meaningful quality of life, and also meaningful being able to financially support themselves. And this was sold to the public as a way to counteract and mitigate risk when none of it was even ready. And millions of dollars just went right to Auxero, formerly RCGT consulting firm, who also housed and held a vaccine passport checking system for the federal government. I mean, the conflicts of interest here were just massive. And then when I exposed that, they pivoted and rebranded to Auxero. And here we are to today, where Member of Parliament Dean Allison, Conservative for Niagara West, has launched an Allison inquiry. I would say 5 years too late, but better late than never. And so they are collecting the stories of vaccine injured Canadians all across the country. And they did an update on Parliament Hill today. I think it's been about a month since that was first announced. And so we have a clip here of Dean giving an update, of Mr. Allison giving an update on the Hill this morning.
Over the past several years, Canadians experienced the pandemic in many different ways. Many families lost loved ones to COVID-19. Many frontline healthcare workers and first responders carried an enormous burden, and I want to once again thank them all for all the work they continue to do every single day. There are also Canadians who suffered serious adverse events following vaccination and who feel their stories have not been adequately heard. Regardless of where someone stands in the broader debate, every Canadian deserves to be treated with dignity, respect, and compassion. When people come forward with their concerns about their health, our first response should never be dismissal, it should be listening. The individuals sharing their experiences through the Allison Inquiry are not statistics. They are mothers, fathers, sons, daughters, friends, and neighbors. Their experiences deserve to be documented, examined, and understood. Good public policy depends on public trust. Trust is strengthened when governments and institutions are willing to ask difficult questions, follow the evidence wherever it leads, and acknowledge when people have been harmed. My position remains simple. Compassion for those who suffered from COVID-19, compassion for those who were injured following vaccination, and a commitment to transparency, accountability, ensuring people have the opportunity to tell their stories. Canadians should never be afraid to speak, and governments should never be afraid to listen. Since announcing the Allison Inquiry just over a month ago, the response has been overwhelming. Hundreds of Canadians from across the country have reached out to share their experiences. Many have spoken about their physical, emotional, financial, and personal challenges they continue to face today. Not everyone is comfortable testifying publicly, and we completely understand that. But we still want to hear your story, because every story matters, whether it's shared publicly or privately. We've also heard from members of Parliament from different parts of the country who have been contacted by constituents looking for answers and looking to be heard. That is why emails have now been sent to every member of Parliament, inviting them to engage with this process, informing them of the opportunity for their constituents to participate.
Now, I think that at the end there, Obviously, this is just my intuition, and I have nothing else to go off of. But that seems like a bit of a side swipe at the Liberals at the end there, or other maybe party members of Parliament who I would wager have been hearing from their constituents, wondering about the Allison inquiry, and I'm trying to find it, and perhaps swaying them or deterring them from participating in it because it is a bad look for the Liberals. They're the party in power. They were the ones who undertook this massive propaganda campaign. They rolled out these allegedly safe and effective shots, vaccines, novel modified RNA injections. And now that their promises are not coming to fruition, are entirely broken, and they essentially lied to the public about having their backs, and the government will be there to support you for the very, very rare instance that you suffer an injury. All of that has come crashing down on the Liberals. And I would say that any of their party members who are being contacted by constituents to partake in this inquiry, they're being perhaps advised not to. I'm trying to find it, but someone had sent me previously, I did a report on it a couple years ago, where someone who was trying to get through to this, which was a massive, as I've already mentioned, filibuster rate from the onset, but nothing has been done to change anything or fix the problem. They reached out to their Liberal MP and they were like, we're not getting answers on this, but we're struggling. You know, our health is in decline, everything's in disarray, our financials, et cetera. And we need some help to get through to this and start getting some compensation to help with our situation. And the Liberal MP was basically like, I can't touch this with a 10-foot pole, and I would suggest you just wait for your appeal to go through. They were like, we're not doing anything about it. And so if that's still the same sentiment now, a few years later, I think that that's a bit of a sideswipe at the Liberals for not facilitating or partaking in this inquiry.
Well, and we know what happened to people who tried to report vaccine injuries. So when we look at what's going on at VISP, that's not the full story, because those are only the vaccine injuries that make it through to VISP. But there are a lot of doctors who would not report vaccine injuries for fear of repercussions that they were seeing instantly, but also long-term. Everybody knows somebody who got a blood clot. I know 3 people who got a blood clot from the vaccine, Lise Merle being one of them. She talked about it on air, so it's okay to talk about. But I've met a few people out in the wild, like Rebel News supporters, who are like, look, I didn't want to lose my job. Blood clot. Blood clot. A perfectly fine young man who worked in mining now walks with a cane because of the stroke he had because of the blood clot. Everybody knows somebody who has a vaccine injury who's not even captured in the scope of what we're talking about here, or weird health outcomes. All of a sudden you're allergic to something that you were never allergic before. And you like, oh, 2 days after a vaccine, I'm allergic to whatever's in my sunscreen. Like there are all kinds of crazy little instances that aren't even captured in all of this. So we'll never know the scope of the damages here.
No, we'll never have a full picture because, and I featured that interview with ER physician, his name is eluding me at the moment, Patrick Phillips, who was sounding the alarm on that by, I believe that was March or May of 2021. So that's very early in the rollout. We knew these things were happening. Mainstream media was ignoring it. The government was, censoring, silencing, smearing anybody. And I wanted to play the other clip of the woman who stood alongside Mr. Allison on Parliament Hill, because her story just reaffirms and confirms all of that reporting over the last few years, and it still is happening to people to this day. We can play that clip, but also I did find the email of the MP who was advising their constituent not to do interviews about this and not shine a bad light onto it because it would perhaps compromise their claim.
Blackmail.
At that point.
Blackmail. Yeah. Shut up or you won't get your VISP claim approved.
Yeah.
Despicable.
Don't talk about it. Yeah. Let's just play the clip of the, her name is...
Michelle Wharton.
Thank you. Michelle Wharton, who is a medical professional, built a career, had a highly successful dental practice in British Columbia, had to sell everything, including her business. She doesn't get into it in the clip, but you can watch the full parliamentary press release that they did this morning. And she had to sell everything to go have brain surgery in the United States because Canada keeps ignoring and disavowing their promise to have her back.
Any chance of any ongoing support from the VISP? See, instead
sorry,
of addressing
it was the clip
mounting
from Twitter or from X.
It's in the chat, Olivia.
I'll reshare it here. It was just her, and this is again, like I think a fraction of her full her full speech on Parliament Hill this morning, which I'm going to do a report on it, but I would urge anyone who's interested to just go and watch that full thing.
We are still living with the consequences of the past 6 years. The exhaustion, the division, the distrust, the damage that never truly healed. There has been no acknowledgement, no meaningful support, no medical care where promised, no accountability. A society that refuses to learn from its past eventually relives what it failed to confront. I live with vision loss, nerve damage, loss of feelings throughout my face and my limbs, and ongoing white matter brain lesions. I experienced difficulty maintaining upright position, balance impairment, and relentless neurological pain. Sharp electric shocks, burning sensations, zapping, pain, numbness occur every single minute of every single day for 5 years. Brain inflammation, all due to an immune response that has never resolved. Ongoing cystic masses in multiple organs, including my brain. I spend 90% of my life homebound, bedbound. No family should ever have to carry the burden after trusting and receiving a Health Canada approved medical product. We have been left behind. We've been disregarded. This injury stole my independence, my quality of life, time we can never get back, and replaced it with uncertainty and loss.
And I see silence. I don't see any mainstream media picking any of this up.
No,
just complete crickets.
Well, because to do that would they'd be forced to admit the role they played in this, in convincing people that this was 100% safe and effective, and they should leap at the first opportunity to take the vaccine, regardless of their personal objections to it. I mean, remember the Toronto Star headline, demonizing the unvaccinated. We should ban them from dinner. Maybe we should put them in camps. Like, it was the most vicious, despicable Toronto Sun graphic that I have ever seen. You think the Toronto Star is going to participate in fairly covering what Dean Allison is trying to do? Absolutely not.
Even Global News, when Rachel Gilmore was employed there, she put out that 45-second TikTok. So you might not want to invite your unvaccinated super spreader family members to your Thanksgiving dinner.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the stuff that was coming out in the media and on social media at that time.
Yeah.
Don't invite anyone unvaccinated to your family gathering, Christmas, Thanksgiving, Easter dinners, all of that stuff. It was being promoted that you would segregate your own family based on their medical records. I mean, that is just medical apartheid 101.
Yeah.
But we said we would end early and we're not. So let me get to this quick chat and then we'll wrap things up. So Field 10 gives $5. Thank you. My guess is that the money for meeting the NATO 5% target will need to come from corresponding social spending cuts.
I hope.
Whether Canadian or European politicians have the will to do that is uncertain.
Look, I'm for social spending cuts, as long as it means a corresponding uptick in our economy and employment rate, right? So we're not cutting out the vulnerable. You know what I would like to see it not spent on? Gender wang nonsense. I'm using that phrase twice in the same show. Cut the gender wang nonsense global affairs spending.
Yeah.
You know, I don't care what the feminist basket weavers are doing on the African continent. I don't want to fund it. I don't see what the benefit is to Canada. Let's stop. Like, let's stop spending billions of dollars there and focus it back home. We need a Doge. Doge cleaned up all of the American global spending on crazy things abroad and at home. I would love to see that here and see some of that money just not spent at all. And the stuff that we feel like we need to spend, let's spend it on the military and on border security and fentanyl fighting.
Yeah, we don't need gender just rice in Vietnam. That's for sure.
No, I don't need to encourage the lady farmers of Southeast Asia to grow crickets, which was a global affairs spending initiative.
Absolutely absurd. All right, well, that's a wrap on this Thursday, and we'll have another team of Rebels back tomorrow, Friday, from 1 to 2 p.m. Eastern. So come back then and stay tuned for more. Thanks to everybody who made the stream possible. Thanks, Sheila, for co-hosting or hosting, and really being the one that carries the water for the live stream every day. So thanks for that, and we'll see everybody same time and place tomorrow. Until then, stay sane and question everything.
Say, folks, I have an announcement to make. For years now, Rebel News has been taking supporters out to sea on our annual cruise. I am officially joining the News Cruise, November 28th to December 5th, 2026. Here's the big picture. This year, Rebel News is teaming up with our friends at Juno News for the very first time, making the News Cruise a true joint venture between two of Canada's most watched independent newsrooms. And the lineup sailing with me, you ask? Well, the big boss man Ezra Levant, he'll be there, of course, the man who has never once in his life been at a loss for words, which should make for excellent dinner conversation, or at least a very long conversation. Cian Bexley will be joining us too. Younger than me, of course, better hair than me, and knowingly good at his job. You'll want to sit across from Cian at dinner. And John Carpay, the brilliant constitutional lawyer from the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms, he will also be on board, which means if the captain tries to infringe on anyone's rights, we've got legal counsel on the Lido deck. We board Holland America Line's gorgeous MS Eurodam in Fort Lauderdale, Florida on Saturday, November 28th, and we don't come back until Saturday, December 5th, 7 full nights in the Eastern Caribbean. And there will be private receptions and candid, off-the-record conversations, the kind you will never see on any screen. And each evening at dinner, we will be rotating seats. So over the course of the week, you will sit across the table from all of us, not watching from a distance, not through a camera, across the table. Cabins are limited, and I cannot stress this enough. Every single cruise Rebel News has ever run has sold out. This year, with Juno News joining forces, demand is going to be even higher. So if you're on the fence, get off that fence and get on the boat. Visit thenewscruise.com to explore cabins and pricing. Please come join us. You just can't lose when you do the cruise.